How's everyone doing tonight? Today we're covering Genki 1 Lesson 10, and it's good to see you guys. Today we have Nito Mark. Thanks for joining us. 7 a.m. in New York. Whew, nice early start over there. We've got Come to Japan Dan and whoever else is here. Question is, I'm getting some audio stream bitrate lower than 0. Can you guys hear me? Yes, new format. I've updated everything in the past couple days. It's been very busy, but I think it'll be worth it. So yeah, thank you for coming in today, everyone. If it's your first time here, my name's Andy. At Tokeni Andy, I stream and also make videos about Japanese, and sometimes I make videos about what it's like to actually live here. So if it's your first time, please consider subscribing. If you enjoy this stream or get anything out of it, make sure you hit the like button. And yeah, I know it's early to ask for that, but gotta say something. If Ando-san was here, he'd tell me to shut up right now. All right, so anyway, today we're covering Lesson 10 in Genki, which covers a couple things like comparisons, avoiding repetition when you're speaking Japanese and using the same noun over and over again, how to say that you intend to do something, becoming either nouns or adjectives, so becoming warm, becoming cold, becoming a father or something like that. And another very useful way to use the particle de. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And yeah, I got a new format here. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it helps make things a little bit easier to understand and follow. So yeah. How is everyone doing? It's been a week since I've been on stream. I didn't get to do the game stream last week because I was sick all week. And they couldn't figure out what it was that I had until Friday. The test finally came back and it turned out I had influenza. But not regular influenza. I had the influenza bacterial infection. So it's I guess what they thought was caused the actual flu until 1933, but it's actually just some kind of bacteria that causes like pneumonia and stuff. So that sucked, but got a few days off for it. So yeah. Anyway, it's good to see you guys here tonight, and let's jump right into. Come to Japan says, huh? What? Look sharp. Yeah. Yes. It was kind of sucked. So jumping right into it, we're going to be covering, let's see, comparisons. So to compare something to something else in Japanese, I first need to mention that you're not able to modify adjectives to express ideas like more or less like you are in English. So in English, when you modify a noun, or an adjective, you can say something like coldest or colder, and you can use words like more or less, of course, for some words and stuff like that. But in Japanese, you can't modify the actual noun to mean these things, so you need to add something. And the thing you need to add is no ho ga and yori. So sorry about this. This looks a little bit like a formula, but it basically, I guess it basically is a formula. So basically we've got a, which is the first thing, no ho ga, which means is more. And then we've got, so you need, I'll get to that in a minute. Then b, yori. So a is more something than b. And p is, of course, the property or the adjective or whatever. So e no ho ga b yori p. All right. One thing I want to mention really quick is that you need to have the no and the ga when you use this expression. They're both in black, but you do need them. So you can't say e ho bi yori p. That will not work. You actually need to have the particles in this situation, which is not always true. Dan says, never heard of the flu infection thing. No, I had never heard of it either, but apparently it's a thing. And it can be pretty dangerous for kids, which is why I had to take off on Friday. But also, it's immune. That bacterial infection is immune to penicillin. So I had been taking penicillin for a couple of days and nothing was changing. It was also sort of resistant to the painkiller I was using. So that wasn't helping. So I had to change all of my medicine on Friday. And by the end of the day, the next day, I felt 10 times better than I did before. So, moving on, an example sentence would be Nagano no hou ga Fukuoka yori samui. So our first first noun here is Nagano, which is where I live, Nagano-ken or Nagano-shi. No hoga, so we know it's going to be more, whatever the adjective is. This is more of it. Fukuoka yori, so this is the one that's less. Samui, so it's cold. Nagano is more cold than Fukuoka. Obviously, Nagano is colder than Fukuoka would be the actual sentence. Kevin Abroad is here. Nice to see you, man. Crap, I need to watch from the beginning on 2 times. You didn't miss much, man. I just went over how to use the expression no hoga and yori to express more than, because you can't modify adjectives in Japanese like you can in English to say things like colder or coldest or anything like that. So we need to add something like no hoga, which is what marks the noun that is more of whatever the adjective is, and yori, which is what marks the noun that is less of whatever the adjective, in this case samui, cold, is. So that's it. It was kind of raining here in Fukuoka, but not too cold. Like 14 degrees sounds wonderful. Today was also kind of warmish here, but not that warm. All right, so another thing that you really need to watch out for with this is that the order doesn't matter, especially in conversation. Often it will be said backwards. So let's just go back to the other sentence quick so you can see what it was one more time. It was Nagano no hou ga Fukuoka yori samui. This could be samui desu or samui da, whatever. So you can do it backwards and it's perfectly fine. So don't like listen for the order to try and figure out which one is more of that thing. You need to know that you need to be listening for the actual markers. No hoga and yori. So backwards would be Fukuoka yori Nagano no hou ga samui. And this is, do you think this is okay? I was going to ask if you thought it was okay, and I forgot about that. So you now know it's okay. Another example, it's pretty much the same thing, but just to get you a little bit more, I'll give you a little bit more of an idea of how it's used, is this sentence. Miso ramen no hou ga shoyu yori oishii. Now, shoyu, I of course mean shoyu ramen. It's implied. You don't need to have it there if it's implied. I guess it could be shoyu no yori oishii. We'll get to that later. So anyway, miso ramen no hou ga shoyu yori oishii. Miso ramen tastes better than soy sauce ramen. I would just say shoyu ramen, even in English. Now, this is where we come to our next little point here, which actually isn't in the book. There's an example with this, but I think it's important to cover it in a little bit of detail because it is kind of important. In this case, what I'm saying is very much an opinion. There's obviously people out there that think shoyu ramen is better than miso, or that they prefer it. So this is definitely more of a preference. So especially in Japanese, most people will sort of point that out by adding that they think that, which is of course omo, to omo. So a more, I don't know, polite or proper way, not necessarily polite, but probably more correct way of saying this would be miso ramen no hou ga shoyu yori oishii to omou, or to omoimasu. I think miso ramen tastes better than soy sauce ramen, because it is an opinion. I agree, both are good though. Yeah. If I have a choice, I'm always going to pick miso. Like, I don't think there's any situation where I'm going to pick shoyu over miso. I've never once been in a mood where I picked it over it. Like, when I first came to Japan, I didn't really know the difference. I certainly did. But I know what my preferences are now. Now, with that said, if I have a choice between something like miso tantanmen and tonkotsu ramen, which is a pork, it's a pork bone base, tonkotsu ramen or something, I might have a little bit more of a difficult time choosing. But generally, if it's a choice between miso ramen and shoyu ramen, miso ramen no hou ga shoyu yori oishii to omou. I think miso ramen tastes better than soy sauce ramen. So, to ask the question, what do you think, which one do you think, or I guess a better way to say this would be to ask someone which of something they think is more something else. This is I should have thought of how to explain this a little better, but the example will make more sense. This is how to turn this whole thing that we've just gone over into a question. So A と B とどっちの方が P. So A, of course, is a noun, B is a noun, and we're asking which one is more whatever the adjective is. I should have put an actual adjective. That's actually really confusing. So let's just jump to an example. Also, I'll mention really quick that どっち or どちら is fine. どちら is the more polite version of this question. So, jumping into an example, we have two nouns. 漫画とアニメとどっち or どちらの方が面白い or 漫画とアニメとどっちの方が面白いですか would be fine as well. If you just put your intonation up, you don't necessarily need that ですか. But anyway, the question is, which is more interesting, manga or anime? Now, yeah, that's it. Manga to anime to dochi no hou ga omoshiroi. So as you can see here, we're not using yori because it's a question. We're just asking which is more. Which one is more of whatever our adjective is going to turn out to be. In this case, it's omoshiroi, which is more interesting. Dan says, anime no hou ga omoshiroi to omoimasu. Yuki's over here saying, yeah. In most situations, I think for myself, anime is probably the more interesting, just because it's much easier for me to follow. I can understand 98% of what's going on screen in an anime, even if it's in Japanese. But reading it in a manga, especially if there's not furigana, it can be a little bit daunting. I can do it. It just takes a lot longer than if I could just watch it on stream or on a screen. So I'd say for myself too, anime no hou ga omoshiroi. So if you have 3 or more items to compare, in the last sentence you realize we had, let's go back really quick, we only had 2, manga and anime. Manga to anime to dochi no hou ga omoshiroi. But if we wanted to compare 3 or more items, we'd need our items, whether we could list them in, like list them with using the to particle, which would be A to B to C no naka. Let's get that up there. De A ga ichiban something. I definitely should have just put adjectives in here. Wait a second. Why the second to? Or what does the to mean here? Right. So let's go back to that really quick. I knew somebody was going to ask this. So I tried to figure out a good answer to that question, but I don't have one. Maybe Yuki does. Yuki, なんでこの2番目のとがありますか? 漫画とアニメとどちらの方が面白い? Why do we have this second to? This is the only thing in the lesson that even I wasn't completely sure about. I know that it's necessary because it's what sounds right to me, but I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe Yuki has an answer. 1 second.
Yeah. Hidden words with tone.
漫画とアニメとなんとか。あ、
との前に hidden words があるでしょ。これはパーティクルだけど、ここにこれはなんか比べれば比べるとってことでしょ。
And
じゃない。
I didn't understand the explanation. I'm sorry, I can't explain it why. I just know that that's why. So 漫画とアニメとどっちの方が面白い? When you're doing these comparisons and you're comparing 2 items, you're going to need that last to. And Kevin, I'm going to try and look it up more for you. I tried to figure it out earlier today, but I couldn't. So just know for now that that's how it's done. And I will try to update you later with what that second to is. Yuki tried to explain it, but I think maybe we both have a little bit of a misunderstanding going on what I'm asking. So anyway, so in this situation, we've got 3 or more items. So we connect them with to. There's no to after this one, by the way. Or a group of items. Let's go back. So you can see here, it can be a class of items like seasons or types of dogs or whatever. And then we have no naka de, so among those things, no naka de, e ga, so one of those things, ga ichiban, another adjective. So that explanation is very hard to understand, but here with an example, I think we can get it. So after each noun, you need a to. In that case, when you're doing these comparisons, yes, you need the to after each noun. Maybe it's just marking each of them. It's not necessarily the and. I'm not sure. I will get back to you on that. Gyotama, subscribe to your channel. Thank you, Gyotama. All right. So, anime no naka de. So this is among all animes, right? Anime no naka de. So this is a group of items. So obviously there's more than 3 animes. So anime no naka de Saiki Kusuo no Sainan ga ichiban omoshiroi. So the disastrous life of Saiki Kusuo is the funniest anime. Is what I'm saying. So let's just go back and take a look at this. One Punch is also really good. But I think Saiki K is funnier. One Punch is probably more interesting and more fun. But I don't know, that's a tough one. Anyway, it's just an example. Anime no naka de. So once again, we've got our class of items. And then among all of those, that's no naka de. That's the meaning of those. Saiki kusuo no sainan ga ichiban omoshiroi. The number one, ichiban is number one. The number one funny would be like the literal translation here. But it means the funniest among 3 or more things. So once again, going back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, this is obviously an opinion. Some people may or may not agree with me. So if I'm speaking proper Japanese here, I definitely need to add to omo, that I think this. So, anime no naka de saiki kuso no sainan ga ichiban omoshiroi to omo. Is it? Never mind. Yeah, so we're good. So what did I miss here? Carry on your lesson. Don't worry. I'm no hello. All right. So now remember that I said here for 3 or more items. This is the setup, right? You've got your 3 items or a class. No naka de e ga ichiban something. So to make that into a question, all you have to do is change the A, the blue A right over here, to something like nani, or dore, or doko, or dare, which is, of course, what, or which, or who, or where. So, anime no naka de nani ga ichiban omoshiroi? So in this case, I'm asking, which is the funniest anime? Which do you think is the funniest anime? Anime no naka de nani ga ichiban omoshiroi? So in Genki, and this is something I never really thought about before, but it makes sense. If I were to have 3 or more items here listed, right, instead of just anime, I'd be more inclined to use the word dore than nani right here. So I would be more inclined if I listed 3 animes, let's say Naruto to Dragon Ball to One Punch ga no naka de dore ga ichiban omoshiroi? I would use dore if I was listing 3 or more animes. But if I'm just putting one group of items or a class of items like anime in general, I'd use the word nani in most cases. It's not a rule, but in most cases, that's what people would do. So, help? I'm no help. Oh, okay. No, man. No worries. So Kevin Abroad says, anime no naka de Naruto ga ichiban suki desu. So, since you're making a statement here, ichiban suki desu, I like Naruto the most. You don't need to say tomo, because you know what you like. You don't have to say, unless you really aren't sure. So, anime no naka de Naruto ga ichiban suki desu tomo. Skidato. And for starters, you would need to have the, not des, you'd have to have the informal version of da. So skidato omo instead of des. So you connect to omo. I covered this in the last stream, actually. So if anyone's watching this in the replay, check out last week's lesson where I cover how to say I think to omou. And you'll figure out how to use this a little more. But anyway, you need the informal conjugation of either a verb or the da, is da, to connect to omo to it. So if you're not sure if you think Naruto is the one you like the most, but you think it is, you could say anime no naka de Naruto ga ichiban suki da to omo. But since you probably do know that you like it the most, you don't need that to omo in this case, because it's not really an opinion then. Dore is for when you have three options, right? Yes, when you have three or more listed. For two, it's dochi. Two is dochi. Anything over two is dore. And if you're just doing a class, like one group of items, like anime no naka de, use nani. All right, so moving on to another example where we have them listed out. We've got banika to choko to ichigo no naka de dore ga ichiban oishii, or dore ga ichiban oishii to omou, or dore ga ichiban oishii desu ka? So between vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, which tastes the best? Of course, this is obviously an opinion. So in this case, at the end, you might say, if you say ski, so in my case, I would say banika ga suki desu is probably what I would say. So I don't need to say to omou. But if I want to say that in general, it's the most delicious, banika ga ichiban suki da, ichiban oishii da to omou is what I would probably say in this situation to respond to it. So Kevin says, yes, I'll have to catch up on this one. Thanks for the feedback. No worries. All right. And that's that. That is how to compare things in Japanese. So just to review, we had noho ga and yori, with noho ga marking which noun is the most of something. And then if we're comparing three or more items, we have those items followed by no naka de dore ga ichiban oishii, or dochi ga nani ga ichiban omoshiroi, or doko ga ichiban samui, for example, if we were to list locations. Nagano to Fukuoka to Okinawa no naka de doko ga ichiban atakai? That would obviously be Okinawa is the warmest. So yes, those are some quick examples. So moving on, the next section of this lesson is about how to avoid excuse me, still getting over this cold. How to avoid being too repetitive when you're using the same noun over and over again. So these two, constructions can have the same meaning. So a normal sentence is an adjective plus a noun, right? When you're not sentences necessarily, maybe that's the wrong word to use here, but an adjective and noun construction, where an adjective modifies a noun, you have the adjective followed by the noun. So samui tokoro, for example, or anyway. So this would have the same meaning, adjective plus no. Okay. So back to a normal sentence or a normal construction, we have akairo no, or akai crayon. This is actually wrong, isn't it? It should be akairo no crayon. It should be, akai crayon. So akai crayon is okay, but also akairo no kureyon would also be correct in this situation, which is probably the construction that makes this a little bit more obvious. So akai no would have the same meaning, but obviously this depends on context. So moving on to that context, one example would be if someone was asking you what color crayon you have. So imagine you're a kid and you just colored all over the wall of your mom's house in red crayon. Okay, that's the scene. That's where you are. So your mom comes home and you hide the red crayon behind your back, and your mom comes in and says, "Nani iro no crayon o motteiru?" What color crayon are you holding, or do you have? She sees the red all over the wall. You say, "Akairo no o motteiru." So in this situation, right, we don't have to say crayon again. We already know that my answer is going to be related to the crayon, so we can just cut the word crayon and leave it at akairo no. Now, Genki presents this no as a pronoun. So as in the no itself is replacing the noun. And I guess if we were to go back and look at this example, akai crayon to akai no, that would be, I guess, the case, but I think it's a little better to think of it when you're learning it as we're just cutting the noun completely and leaving the no for examples like iro, nani iro no crayon. We're just cutting the crayon. But if it's a situation where we have akai crayon, then I guess it would be more of a pronoun. But I like to think of it as just cutting the noun and adding no, or leaving no in the situation that there was one to begin with. So Kevin Abroad says, that was a super useful structure. I feel like I'll have to go through Genki as a way to revise what I've learned in my current textbook, as well as learn the stuff that isn't covered in it, but is in Genki. Ando did it. Oh, like the red one? Yes, that's exactly it. So it's like the red one in this case. Yes, the red one. It is a very useful structure, the one we went over before, so I definitely recommend checking that out again when you have the time, because you'll use it all the time. So obviously, if you were that kid, you wouldn't actually say this whole sentence. You wouldn't say akairo no o motteiru. You would say probably something more along the lines of akairo no. So literally, that's a perfectly fine sentence. You don't need to repeat the verb. You don't need to repeat anything. You can just say akairo no. But to be completely honest with you, an actual child would most likely just say akai or akairo. They probably wouldn't bother with any of the rest of the sentence. They'd just say the color, and that would be fine. But for the purpose of today, we're just going to add the no there. So yes, it is similar in that situation, right? It's like the red one. And it can also actually just be like the possessive. It can mark the possessive. So a funny thing about this, and this is something Genki doesn't mention, is that we do the same thing in English all the time. So here's an example. If just me is speaking, there's no question being asked of me, we can still use this structure because, for example, here I have a crayon, which I apparently can't say the word crayon. Kureyon. All right. これはアンディのクレヨン. It's invisible. これはユキの. So obviously in my second sentence, I'm holding these two things. This one's mine, this one's hers. I don't need to say crayon again. I don't need to say これはアンディのクレヨン. これはユキのクレヨン. Unless I don't know, talking to like an idiot. But like the literal meaning of the word. So これはアンディのクレヨン. これはユキの. That's perfectly okay. And in this case, it's the possessive. And we do it in English. This is Andy's crayon. This is Yuki's. I wouldn't say this is Andy's crayon. This is Yuki's crayon. Unless I was talking to like a dog, really. That's how you talk to like a dog in a movie, I feel like. But anyway, could you even say akai no? Akai no. I feel like I might, depending on the situation. Huh? Yeah, but it sounds like Yuki said, it sounds childish to say akai no. But I might say it because I work with children all day, every day, so I end up speaking a little bit childishly from time to time. But the proper way to say it would be akairo no. Yeah. So anyway, moving on. So that's it. That's how you use the no. It's actually very straightforward. It's just cutting the noun or replacing the noun with no. And then you can sort of cut out nouns that are sort of obvious or within the context we know what they are. So we don't have to say it over and over and over and over and over again. So our next thing in this lesson today is how to say that you intend to do something, particularly in the future. So you may recall that the present tense in Japanese is the present tense in Japanese can also be the future tense. So if I say, for example, what's a good example? Uh-oh. I think I lost something. Oh, there it is. Okay. An example might be if I said, what's an example? Yogurt o taberu. So I could mean that right now I'm going to eat yogurt, or I could mean that in the future I'm going to eat yogurt. It depends on the context, right? So the present and the future tense in Japanese are the same. But if you want to be really specific about what you intend to do in the future, you can use this construction, which is the short form of a verb, for example, taberu, and tsumori da. Now, I just want to mention that in a lot of cases, especially in conversation, I might cut that final da, tsumori desu, tsumori da. I might cut it and just say tsumori, but generally it's supposed to be there. So, intend to do the verb. So, taberu tsumori da would be I intend to eat. And obviously that would be in the future. Now, you can also use it with the past. Like if I change that da to the past tense, it would become tsumori datta, I intended to. Then obviously it's not the future, but it's talking about something I intended to. So it really just means intend to. So my example sentence is taberu. So for the example sentence, we have 10時に食べるつもりだ. I intend to eat at 10. I didn't put the I in the English because obviously it's implied. So the more accurate translation would be intend to eat at 10. 10時に食べるつもりだ. I intend to eat at 10. Pretty straightforward. So jumping on to our next example, we have 明日仕事に行かないつもりだ. So we can also use it for negative intention. So things I intend not to do. So tomorrow, I do not intend to go to work. Or I do not intend to go to work tomorrow. 明日仕事に行かないつもり. And this is true. Tomorrow is a national holiday, so I do not plan to go to work tomorrow. 明日仕事に行かないつもりだ. Or 明日行かないつもりです. Or you could cut the da. Sadly, Yuki does have to go to work tomorrow because she has a different type of schedule and they don't get national holidays off, which is sad. Kevin Abroad says, love the grammar you're teaching. Thank you. It's just lesson 10 of Genki. So eventually I'll probably cover these things in a little bit more detail on my my grammar videos that focus on one little point, probably with Ando-san. So if you don't understand anything on here, of course, please feel free to ask in the Discord or on Twitter or in chat or in the comments if you're watching on the replay. But if you don't feel like doing that, eventually one of those videos will come out as well. Come to Japan Dan says, 仕事に行きたくない. You have to work. You and Yuki both. That sucks. I'm surprised that your school doesn't take off on national holidays. But I guess it's sort of a juku. So jukus, yeah, they're big. My old company didn't really take those off either because they were big days to Shoganai, says Kevin. Yeah, those are big days to fit in extra lessons kids throughout the day because the kids didn't have to go to regular school. All right, so our next grammar point is a good one, I think. It means become. So to become a noun or to become an adjective, and that is adjective plus the verb naru, which of course is to become. But anyway, we can use it as an auxiliary verb, I guess, with adjectives and nouns. So it means become whatever that thing is, of course. So the way we do this for adjectives and non-adjectives and nouns is a little bit different. So for adjectives, we cut the and then we add ku, or we change the to ku if that's easier for you to remember, and add naru. So atatakai becomes atatakaku naru. Atatakaku naru. So to become warm, right? Dayo ne, says Dan. All right, so that's it. You cut the at the end of adjectives, and then you add naru. So for na-adjectives and nouns, good news, they're both treated exactly the same way. So for a na-adjective, we'd add ni naru. So we leave, obviously, the na-adjective the way it is, and add ni, the particle, and naru. So in this case, we use the na-adjective shizuka, which is quiet. We add ni naru, we get shizuka ni naru. Shizuka ni naru. Now for nouns, we treat them exactly the same way. We just add ni naru, chichi ni naru, to become a father. So chichi ni naru. Thank you, hello friend, for that example. I could not come up with a noun to use here for the life of me. Originally it was inu, but I asked in the Discord for some help with picking a noun because my brain was fried. I spent like 6 hours making this today, and he hooked me up with that. So I just wanted to mention really quick that naru conjugates like a regular do verb in the way that we covered it back in lesson 3. So check that out if you want to start covering how to conjugate verbs and you haven't yet. So just some examples of how we would conjugate an e adjective like tanoshii into the different tenses. So we've got tanoshiku naru, that's to become fun. Tanoshiku naranai, to not become fun. Tanoshiku natta, it became fun. Tanoshiku naranakatta, it didn't become fun. Tanoshiku narimasu, a more polite version of tanoshiku naru, it just means it becomes fun or it will become fun, right? Just some examples of how to conjugate. The naru just conjugates like a normal do verb. All right, so our last example in this part of become is using both the noho ga yori structure and our new naru. So this example sentence is Ando-san no hou ga Andy yori ninki ni narisou. It looks like Ando-san will become more popular than Andy. So I added one other piece of grammar on here today. And I'm not going to cover it too much. Eventually, I'll cover it in another video. It is in the grammar dictionary, so it's going to come up in a lesson at some point. But that is so. So you see we got nariso, right? So this so that you add to the vimas stem, the mas form of verbs, it means it looks like or it appears that. That's all that it means. That's it. Literally, you just add it to the vimas stem. That is not in Genki 1. I don't even think I could find it in Genki 2. I checked, so it won't show up in any of these Genki lessons, but it will show up in one of our regular grammar lessons. Ando even has his own kanji. Yes, Yuki put that on there for me. But that is actually the kanji for Ando. So the reason I picked Ando is because when I go to festivals, I'm jokingly called Ando-san. In fact, quite a few people actually thought I was Ando-san. When I say Andy, like that D is kind of hard for people to say sometimes, so they just call me Ando as a joke, or they actually think I am Ando-san, so just went with that. Ando-san no hou ga Andy yori ninki ni narisou. It looks like Ando-san will become more popular than Andy. I'm completely fine with that. All right. So the final part of this lesson today, if nobody has any questions on that, is another way to use the particle de, and this is a very useful thing, and it can be a little confusing, but we're just going to cover a small portion of this today. It can be very easy to confuse this de with the ni particle, but we're not going to go into that today, but I may cover it in another lesson sometime. Kevin says, I like the name Ando. Yeah, it's nice. I like the kanji too. So the structure we're going to cover today with the particle de is a noun plus de plus an action. And that usage of de gives us doing an action with or by or at, maybe in, a noun. Okay? So let's go over a quick example or 2 or 3 of how we would use this. My example that I use every day would be 自転車で仕事に行く. So this de can express basically using tools to do something or using a method of transportation. That's the most common usages of these. So 自転車で仕事に行く. So I go to work by bicycle. 自転車で, so by bicycle, right? So in this sentence, and usually when we're talking about methods of transportation, this de means by. Our next example, it means something slightly different, but it's still the same idea. スプーンでヨーグルトを食べる. So I generally don't use chopsticks when I'm eating yogurt. スプーンでヨーグルトを食べる. I eat yogurt with a spoon, right? スプーンでヨーグルトを食べます. In this case, it means with this de. Oh, and that's it. Those are our examples. We can also say 仕事で doing some kind of work. But I'm not going to cover that today because that's when we start to get a little confusing with things like ni, and the Genki book does not cover that today. Montano Margot, Grammy, hello. Are you almost done? I just woke up, so I'm not awake yet. Yes, I'm almost finished At least the lesson portion is finished. So right here we've got "いいね" o oshite kudasai. If this was helpful for you, please hit the like button. チャンネル登録お願いします. And if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. So yeah, that's it for today. It was a nice short one, 40 minutes ish. But thank you guys for coming around. I hope you like the new screen design of the lessons. Before it was a little tiny face of mine. I can't even remember if it was in the bottom right or something, with a big giant free PowerPoint that looked terrible. I feel like it's a little bit more, I don't know, easy to read now. A little bit more stylish. I like it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, or if you're watching on the replay and you didn't quite understand something, please go ahead and ask down in the comments, or join the Discord and ask in there. I'm always happy to answer questions really quickly. Yuki's also in there and answers questions that I can answer often quicker than I can. And there's also a bunch of guys in there that are studying really hard Japanese. We're giving each other tips and showing people. They're even showing me stuff that I haven't found. A lot of new study materials and things that are really useful. We share learning materials and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's a great fun in the Discord. So join there if you haven't and you have any questions. Also, you can ask me questions on Twitter. I answer as quickly as possible. Come to Japan dances. Hit the like, everyone. And Kevin Abron says, in a Japanese class, I mixed up kare and kare in the following sentence. Spoon de kare o tabemasu. It was funny. Don't even know if I wrote that right. Yeah, that's an easy mistake to make. And in conversation, I feel like the context would make it obvious what you were saying. But if you had written it down, yeah, that would be a funny mistake. One other thing I wanted to mention really quick. Did you start on the hour instead of the half hour, says Montana Marker. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't actually tell you by email. I put it on Twitter and a few other places. But my lessons are now starting on the hour. Just because starting at 9:30, if the lesson gets a bit long, I end up not being able to sleep early enough. And after a stream, I'm pretty amped, so it's very hard to fall asleep right after. So I decided to start a little bit earlier. So sorry about that. I know it's really early in the morning over on the East Coast there. But thank you for stopping by. It's good to see you live. It's been a while. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention really quickly, I wanted to just say, thank you so much to, we had Vide and also Hello Friend from the Discord and one other person. Who was it? I don't think she's here tonight, but, what was your name? Ariel. You guys bought me coffees on Ko-Fi, and I never expected that to happen. I made it just because I saw so many people were using it, and I figured why not? I'd make one. But yeah, you guys, I was super shocked when I got notifications that someone had bought me a coffee. So thank you so much for those donations, and I will put those right back into the channel. Thank you so much. It's super encouraging to get stuff like that. I never expected it, and I never expect it, but thank you anyway. So thank you very much. Kevin Abroad says, I eat my boyfriends with a spoon. Devil head. That's scary. Anyway. So yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, I don't really have any stories to tell tonight because I was just literally lying around all week, sick as a dog. Beyond that, influenza bacteria, not influenza virus. Come to Japan, Dan says, how does that work? Funny thing, Kevin's comment didn't even show up in the chat, on the screen here. That's weird. Anyway, maybe it was too long. Who knows? Yeah. Otherwise, Yuki and I have spent my whole week of. I'll show you. Yuki and I spent our whole week of me being sick playing Diablo on the Switch. It's been super fun. You can actually play two players on the same screen. So we spent a week every night just playing that, which is, it's a good way to spend the time when you're sick. I was hoping to do that tonight as well, but I spent literally the entire day prepping this lesson and resetting up OBS to be, this cool, stylish setup. So anyway. Oh, Andy, you did an interview with that Japanese YouTuber. Yes, I did that yesterday. I planned it. It took me about a week to plan that. maybe a little more. But I did all the filming and editing yesterday. So that was really fun. My new video, if you haven't seen it yet, it's how to say I wish I had in Japanese with Ando-san. So check that out. I had a lot of fun making it. It's one of the first videos I'd say, like, I was nervous in a good way when I pressed upload. Like, I just felt really good about it, and I was excited for people to see it. And it was also something I'd never done, way out of my comfort zone, which was fun. I enjoyed it, and I'm going to keep doing more of that. So, is there going to be a translation of it? I think there is. I put subtitles, right? So, Andy, you did an interview with that Japanese. Oh, that you're talking about. Yes. You mean the podcast I did with Kaz? Most of that was in English. I think there's one little section that we did in Japanese, but most of it was in English. If that's what you're talking about, I'm not sure. Yeah, that was fun. I did a podcast with Kaz. I'm actually doing another one in a couple days. Next week, I think I'll be doing a podcast, another one with him. It was really fun to talk to him on the podcast. Oh, I thought he did something with you, like a podcast. Yes, Kaz. His name is Kaz. He does Eigo no Nodo on YouTube. And we did a podcast. It's about 4 parts. It's on his Voicey, I think is the name of the website. And 3 out of 4 of the parts of it were in English. Then we talked in Japanese for a little bit. But yeah, so there's no need to translate that. And the Japanese is even pretty straightforward. He's the guy who listens to Gaijin and comments on their accents. Yes, that guy. That's that guy. It was really fun to talk to him. I enjoyed it. And because of that, I'm going to be doing another one next week, I think. So that's going to be fun. Anyway, yeah. So that was good. But anyway, guys, I don't want to ruin my voice. I already feel like this cough is coming. I appear to have gotten a cough on top of my terrible sore throat that finally went away yesterday. So just so that doesn't get aggravated. The page was in Japanese. I'll have to find it again. Ah, yes, the website is in Japanese, but the actual podcast was in English. And I think he retweeted it again, or he tweeted it out again a couple days ago, and I retweeted it, so it should be near the top of my Twitter feed. There should be a link there if you want to check it out. We had some good conversations. We talked about, what the differences between living here and in America, because he lives in America, but he was born in Japan. Could you share it on the Twitter again? Yes, I'll retweet it out as soon as I finish with this stream, so that you can take a look at it. Yep, I will do that. That would be way easier, because I'm not sure how many. I tweet too much, so it could be way, 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 way down the list. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you all learned something, and yeah, I will see you Tuesday for the game stream. We're finally going to get back to that. I missed at least 1 week of that. Maybe 2? I think 1. 2 out of the past 3 I think I've missed, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next chapter. We've got a lot more kanji to read, or to learn, so that's going to be a good time. Anyway, thank you very much. いいねを押してください。チャンネル登録もお願いします。It was a good time. See you next time for chapter 11. There's only 2 more chapters left in Genki 1, and then we're going to be moving on to Genki 2, which is a much better book in my opinion. So that's good news for all of us. It's also much more difficult, so the lesson prep time might be a lot longer. Maybe I'll break them down into shorter lessons. We'll see. Anyway, it's been fun. Have a great night. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, right, over here. Haha. All right, guys. I don't know if anyone's still here. I don't think anyone is still here. But Yuki just explained to me this example that you see in the screen right here. So I'm going to explain it really quick so that I can throw it on the edit of this lesson when I come back and cut it up. So the reason we have the to at the end here in manga to anime to is that it should actually be, and I don't know why Genki didn't explain this, but it should actually be manga to anime da to. Manga to anime da to. Dochi no hou ga omoshiroi. So for some reason Genki doesn't explain this. It just adds the to there. And I don't think it does, unless I completely missed it. Let's take a look. I don't think I did. Comparison. Bus to dencha. No, they don't explain it at all. So, it really is supposed to be manga to anime da to dochi no hou ga omoshiroi. So if you cut that da, which you are able to do, it becomes manga to anime to, but it's very casual apparently. So, there's the explanation for that. I know nobody's here anymore, but I'll at least be able to cut that into the replay of this stream when I get around to editing that. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Thank you, and I will see you next time. Yes, I figured out why the to is here, Dan. So it turns out that the actual way to create this is a very casual way because we cut a missing da. It's supposed to be manga to anime da to. Dochi no hou ga omoshiroi. Yeah. So anyway, I just came back on to restream it so that I can have it in the replay and point people towards the end of it, or at least have it to cut when I come back to this lesson in a couple weeks to cut it up and reshare it. So yeah. Thank you, Yuki. And yeah, now we know. There's a missing da. It's not really missing. You're allowed to cut it, but it's supposed to be there. So anyway, really signing off now for tonight. But anyway, thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time. Oh, Mark, thanks. I didn't realize you were still here. Thanks for hanging out. All right. See you guys next time. Have a great night or a great day. And that's it. Bye-bye.